Here we go on a podcast, and we have three amazing guests in the house today. I want to something I fucked up on before was when I had Mind Pump on, I realized like halfway through, nobody knows who the fuck is speaking. So I'm going to have you guys each introduce yourselves and in your own voice. Because what I did, I was like, hey, this is Sal, Justin, and Adam. And then nobody could correlate the voice with each person. So we'll let you guys go around the table, starting with Doc Eric Goodman, and you guys will be able to match for the listeners that aren't watching on YouTube.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. I'm Dr. Eric Goodman. Nice to meet you all. I'm part of foundation training.
Jesse Salas, one of the master instructors with foundation training.
I'm Dr. Emeka Aladobu, sports medicine, and also one of the instructors at foundation training.
There we go. So let's jump right in here. Obviously, we want to talk about a number of things here, and if we get off topic, it's no big deal. But I've got a couple things on my radar in particular. Number one, I want to dive deep into foundations training, how that's come along, how that came to be. And, really, as you were mentioning to me yesterday when we were working with John Wolf and I, just how this has really gone from where it started to where it is today and what you plan for the future with it. And then we'll take a deep dive into endocannabinoids because that's something that I certainly want to talk about. But let's start with foundation training. How'd you get started in...
The story is easy. The story. I wish there was a more interesting story. And I guess if you've never fixed yourself for anything, it's a pretty interesting story. But I had a really bad back, and I was in chiropractic school. That was 10 years ago. I was actually talking with these guys today. I graduated chiropractic school 10 years ago, April of 2008. That's mind blowing to me. But in that time, I was about the worst off in my life that I've been. I was 27, 28 years old. I was finishing school. And suddenly I was literally like, I couldn't stand up half the time. I would get out of a chair and my back, fuck, can't move. I'm stuck. And as a chiropractor, that was a really scary thing because I was in school to learn how to maintain health, how to help people find health, how to return a body to this alignment and structural integrity. And I want to tell you very clearly that I believe deeply in the ability to do that. I believe deeply in the profession and the education of chiropractic. But I needed a more active approach for my body. And everything is a tool. Nothing stands alone. Something I had to learn along the way. So what foundation training was at the time was a desperation effort to fix my spine instead of getting a fusion surgery at my L4, L5 vertebra and at my L5, S1 vertebra, where the injury is pretty severe. My L5, S1 is one in the same bone now. And L4, L5,
is it just degenerative, or did you actually have like a car accident
No.
or fall off a horse or something?
I fell off a lot of things. I played a lot of sports when I was young, and I weight lifted quite a lot when I was younger, from 14 to about 26, when I realized I was beating myself up pretty bad. I was a water polo player. I was a swimmer. I was a hockey player. I skated. I was an inline rollerblader, which, you know what?
I don't tell anybody that.
Jean shorts and a fanny pack.
That's all right. I wear a fanny pack. As long as I don't have both of them on at the same time, I think I get a pass.
Yeah, right?
Like, get one or the other.
Man, you grow up at 37 and you realize that who you were helped you become who you are. And all those injuries came from who I was, and I'm proud of who I was. And I was good at what I did too. And that's why I got hurt a lot, because I was pushing the envelope pretty heavily within myself. And I trained for it. And the training for it created a pattern in my spine that I'm still trying to undo today. And I'm pretty far along. As you guys have felt in your own bodies, there's some power in there. The foundation training poses can change your structure a little bit if you do them long enough. What I did find, though, is that without that active component, I couldn't get better. I was literally at the mercy of whatever doctor or therapist was working on me, and my back just wasn't getting any better, and I was really frustrated. And I was, there's times in life where you don't want to be yourself, and that was one of those times. And I was stuck in that mindset, in that body for a good 3-4 years. It was interesting. I really believe that posture and mindset have a lot to do with each other. I'm not sure if it's chicken or the egg first, but posture and mindset really have a lot to do with each other, it seems. And at that time, I was extremely depressed and extremely anxious about my life. And I had failed my chiropractic boards the first time I took them. And then I failed my chiropractic boards the second time I took them. And my back hurt really bad. And I happened to be the team doctor for the U.S. Olympic water polo team. I was in quite a predicament mentally. I was succeeding on the outside, and I was failing miserably, literally from the inside out. I had no structural integrity, but I had a lot of mental integrity. I was not willing to fold. I was going to keep trying. And I kept trying. I kept on trying. I've heard of that David Goggins guy, he like beat himself to death. I was the opposite, man. I was like, you can do this, man. You're going to be okay. You can get through this. You don't have to fight through it, but you got to get through it. And you got to find ways to enjoy getting through it. And exercise stimulates the body really nicely, and you get to enjoy getting through stressful times with exercise. And my exercises started to look extremely specific because I could not do other exercises without hurting my spine. So all of my exercises started to utilize this hip joint hinge motion, which I had learned many times. You learn it in kettlebells, you learn it in any healthy Olympic weightlifting, you learn it in any healthy motion, you learn how to hip hinge, but nobody ever broke it down for me properly. Nobody ever told me that front to back hip hinge is the product of several spiraling muscle chains that need to be accordingly tensioned and understood. And you have to become very sensitive to how your body is holding its weight through those chains if you want to have any real chance of getting through life without much physical pain. And foundation training is my personal best representation of that. It makes sense from my body, which, as it turns out, a lot of people have bodies similar to mine. That, they stand on two legs, they have arms, they have a torso that needs to learn how to be stable, not just at the abdomen, but at the entire circumference and depth and height of the torso. And that's what I teach people now. And the cool thing is, foundation training now represents this like coming to confidence in my life. Because over 10 years, I became a very different version of myself. Extremely prideful now, extremely proud. I'm excited to interact with people because I get to show them something that I don't think they've ever seen before. And oftentimes it helps them. So in that time, I passed my boards and I became a licensed chiropractor, which was a very big thing for me. I did that in 2013. And I still carry licenses in Colorado, California, and Hawaii, because those are my favorite places to go. Mm-hmm. And I've started to design this life much like I started to design my spine, which was my life is going to be based in health and teaching people health for as long as I can possibly keep it that way. And foundation training is that. That is exactly what our business is. It is hopefully going to remain a business, because that's certainly a goal. But more than that, it's an idea that I hope perpetuates health in as many people as find it. And then, I get to meet guys like Emeka and guys like Jesse. And I've known both these guys for a while. I've known Jesse since I was 19 years old. And I've known Emeka for 5-6 years now? Rough, something like that. And these are really talented guys. And what I've found is that the better I get at helping my own body, the more talented people I get to surround myself with. And genuinely talented, deep down. They want to learn more. They want to know more. It's just this endless curiosity that we all have kind of within us. And you literally have to work every day to get it out. For some people it's physical, for some people it's mental, it's breathing, whatever it is. You got to find that recipe that gets out your sense of charisma, sense of self, sense of pride, sense of confidence, and you got to practice that shit as often as you can. But you need direction and you need to understand it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a general idea that we have on not only wanting to fix people and improve health, and that's usually founded in our own fucked up bodies, right? We decide like, oh, this is important to me because we reach a state of crisis. And then from there, through our knowledge and learning on how to heal ourselves, that's something we want to share with the world. I think it's important, but something that's forgotten in that is we're the best version of ourselves when we're healthy and happy and we're not in pain. Like that just not only improves your own quality of life, but improves all your fucking relationships, how you are as a dad or a mom or a sister or brother or a friend or a coworker. It's all improved when we feel better.
I believe that. And I believe, like everything else in life, there's an extreme that can reach, in which the altruism becomes selfishness, where you're doing it because you want to be the best version of yourself, to serve yourself, but also to serve those that you love, to be helpful, to be useful. This is a balance I'm walking a lot these days. I have a young baby daughter and I have a wife, and I'm really trying to figure out how can I be useful. That piece of you changes with a young baby. You got to figure out how you can stay useful, within your family. So I think there's a point in which exercise is you got to do it every day. I really believe in that, but you can't only do that. You have to health comes from society. It comes from interactions. It comes from a sense of being able to help people in whatever way you can help people. Like that's health. It's not just how fast can you run or how much weight can you lift. That is a big part of it. But there's this big picture of what a healthy human being looks like in life. And there's so many pieces to that. And I just want, when I see people out there saying, my thing's this, my thing's that, it's like, your thing is a piece of a puzzle if you're lucky. If you're lucky, it's a piece of a healthy puzzle. But it's a puzzle. and everybody's puzzle looks different, and there's so many pieces. You have to stay super curious about how can I make myself a little better? Not, I have to become better. How can I make myself a little better? And answer that question as honestly as you can. And that seems to be like.
Hell yeah. I dig that. So Jesse, how'd you get involved?
Well, he brought the snake oil over and I was gone. No, I was a firefighter in the city of Orlando. I was on a technical rescue unit, living my dream, and life was amazing, and went from Olympic weightlifting and really pushing what my idea of health at the time was, which is the stronger I was, the more weight I could move, the better I was gonna be as a fireman. You know, we came off the unit and we'd be carrying ladders, saws, air packs, special rigs, because we focused when we got to fires was safeguarding a building to get the guys out if they got into trouble. And then if we could not overcommit, we'd search for people. So we go to a lot of things, dive rescue, and in my journey, I went back to BJJ and third class back in. I'm loving it. Third class in, tore my MCL. And so him and my sister were dating at the time. I called her for help.
Goodman.
Doc Goodman. Yeah.
People don't know who him is.
People don't know who him is.
People on the podcast.
Damn it. So Doc Goodman and my sister are just starting to date. And let me just clarify, we were buddies in college first. That's why I always have to tell everybody.
He introduced me to his sister, which I appreciate dearly.
Gave you the green light. You got the green light.
Yeah. I gave him the guy. He likes to surf. He's in. I got someone to surf with. But he jumped on the phone and was kind of like, let me help you with your injuries. I said, hey, bro, I appreciate it, but it's not my back, it's my knee. And he gave me a convincing speech. So I flew out to California and started doing foundation training. And it was like, for me, it was the challenge that I got with when I would train or coach Olympic weightlifting. And again, at the local level, I never took it to a platform. But, it was a mental challenge. There was so much involved with being able to deliver the work properly. And when it came to coaching that, I was like, wow, this is a whole different animal. And you would get in a position, and it was, I always quote Wim Hof, as feeling is understanding, because people look at it as a passive thing. The number of times firemen dry humped me when I came back doing the work, because they'd see me in the founder position and they'd run up and grab me by the hips, like any frat house. And, then they started trying it and they got hooked. And, I saw what it was doing for me. And it was like the missing link in my training. And I pushed into it pretty hard, and yeah, the rest is history. Next thing I know, I'm getting presented with these scenarios to travel and teach with Eric, surfing the world, and kind of living this other dream that I always said when I retire, I'll do that. I never thought I would not be a fireman. I started when I was 17 years old, and here I'm at 35, walking away. And it was one of the hardest decisions I made, but I knew in my heart it was the right decision, because it allowed me to see what it did locally with my, the guys that I were mentors and close family to like a global scale. So that was the big decision-making process. But here I am, and I don't regret it. I talk to the guys all the time. I miss firefighting. I miss the job. I hear two guys from my unit pulled somebody out the other day and give me the details. Give me the rundown. Where was the fire? Where'd you go in? How, it flashed. Two guys, their gears melt. I mean, these guys aren't talking about being firemen and sitting at some, retirement station. These guys are living this job, and they're passionate about it. They're out teaching it. And, when I connect with them, that's what I miss. I miss that part, but I know my path's gone different. So, it's a privilege to live one dream and get to start the next chapter of this story, as watching people and how they respond when you do this work with them, and it's, I feel like I get to inspire in a different way. And it's really, really just amazing what the work does. Watching you guys yesterday, watching everybody, some of the toughest guys out there. And when you get them to drop their guard and just give it a shot, it's just the light bulb. I always said it was the oh shit moment where they feel it and you can see it in them. And then it's like, they can't get enough. So it's fun. It's just a fun journey for me, and life's meant to be fun. So that's what I'm doing.
Hell yeah. Yeah. One thing I was surprised with was not that it was effective, but how fast it worked. John and I were like, oh fuck. Like, we held that position for 10, 15 seconds, did a second round of it, walked around, and it was a total shift in the body, just immediate. And obviously that takes time. It's not like you do fucking 30 seconds of anything and you're healed for life, but the fact that it could change something that quickly. in that short amount of time. That's something I'm always gearing towards. Is the one thing people don't have is time, right?
Yeah.
So what are the most effective things we can do to change our bodies, to change our mind state that can happen the quickest? You know, that's why I like a 5-minute cold bath as opposed to an hour-long sauna. You know, like if I have a choice of one or the other, I'm going to do the 5-minute cold bath. There's no question. Same thing goes, you know, you really read a book like Relax into Stretch, like Pavel, and he's literally teaching you how to get comfortable stretching for 45 minutes in the same position. It's a 45-minute fucking stretch. Like, I'm not setting aside time for 45 minutes
Yeah, I got that.
for my fucking workout. What do you mean I'm going to stretch for 45 minutes?
What can I say? I got to support certain things because some people will. And if you do my work or our work for 45 minutes, you're going to shake. It's a different process. If you're stretching a ligament or a tendon, eventually both, you're doing something different to the body. You're creating some relaxin. You're creating an oxytocin release. You're creating a relaxation deep at like a hormonal level. I'm not saying it's good or bad. That's not my place. I understand my work. I don't really understand other people's as well. But there's a shitload of people out there that want to know how to stretch for 45 minutes in one position. And they should know. That information should be there for them. You know, it's not going to break them. Some people, there's going to be critics of everything. But that's okay. That nobody gets by doing anything interesting without critics. And Pavel has done some tremendously interesting things.
I love Pavel. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love him. I've learned a lot from him, quite a bit from him, you know, but certainly, you know, when it comes to these things, I guess what I'm talking about is even if I'm going to devote that kind of time to it, I want payoff quicker.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point I want to talk to is that I love stretching and I do it in a meditative state. And I do it in a sense of connecting with my body, and I'll put, you know, my breathing mask on. I focus on how my breath is going and set the timer, and just when that goes off, I'm there. But for bang for the buck, like I was telling Eric yesterday, I got up yesterday morning when I got in the night before. I got up and immediately was like, I'm going to train. You know, I got goals I'm focused on. So I went upstairs. I'm like, man, my back's tight. It's tight. Like I'm going, okay, so you need to forego your initial plan and start with foundation training. So I do the work, and then, you know, Turkish get-ups and treadmill work, swam, and then go downstairs. I'm like, it's still tight. Okay, you're half-assing this. Put the Tabata timer on, focused on two exercises. It was done. It was gone. And that's what I tell a lot of my friends is like the effectiveness, once you know how to do this stuff, a Tabata is generally all I need. And I enjoy doing other movements before surfing. I have a whole foundation routine I follow. Focus on hip leading the way and everything. So much rotation in surfing. But when I'm going, things feel out of whack. And I think that the work helps you make those connections, is recognizing that, man, I'm tight. Okay, well, if I do this exercise, it's going to address it. Being able to kind of zero in and just apply the recipe. You know, and it doesn't, I mean, at 4 minutes, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest, 2 exercises, and got up, I'm like, boom, done. You know, but if I go into my explanation of other people is like, yeah, I'm addressing that, but I'm also teaching my body to connect. I'm teaching it to work as an efficient system, that when I go into this movement, I'm getting everything working together as a coordinated system, just like my kettlebell swing. I want to know that when I surf or swing my kettlebell, this whole thing's connecting to deliver the best possible swing at every moment. When I'm going into my turn, everything's connecting, that I'm not dumping into my messed up knee. So, you know, I just go back to the immediate is amazing, but the overall picture is just, you know, it's, I feel like it's hard for me to talk to you now that it's my full career because, oh, you're just trying to sell us on it. When I was a fireman, like, hey, look, I'm a fireman. I don't care if you do it. It works for us. But, you know, when you play with it, the rabbit hole gets deep, and then you see whatever other physical endeavor you take on suddenly start getting better. You know, and I only talk from personal experience and the close friends that, you know, do their sports and they do it competitively, and they're like, bro, that's a must. Firemen, when I talk about the first responder program, are like, bro, we want to see this in every fire department. We're trying, actively pushing it to departments that are just neighboring because they work together. Because they saw it, they've saved, you know, guys talking about saving careers. James Gearing, who has a podcast, Behind the Shield, you know, he's got an amazing story, his back injuries. And then, you know, a lot of guys know the work, they still tweak their back, and then they go, it's my fault, I wasn't doing the work. I could have prevented it. You know, because a lot of guys, well, you're not supposed to get hurt. You're not supposed to have a bad back. You're not bomb-proof. You have the tools to help prevent it. But at the end of the day, if I pull a shit deadlift, I know I can still get hurt, even if I know everything to set up correctly. So, you know, it's getting kind of getting through to people on that part. But it's powerful, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's get Emeka in this conversation. We've already gone like 20 minutes without him. How'd you get your start in all this?
Oh man. First and foremost, man, thank you. This is fucking amazing, by the way. You can actually curse on the fucking radio. You know?
Fuck. We got
it. So anyways, I met Eric about 5 years ago, and as a young doctor, I was one of the students that got picked out. Well, actually, let me rewind that. So there's a gentleman that I know, Eric and I both know together, by the name of Dr. Tim Brown. Well-known, well-respected in our field and in any other field, to be honest with you, because of the amount of work that he does. And the guy's just a very, very, very sharp sports medicine chiropractor. Tim and I connected, and then there were some things Tim put me through, tested my knowledge, and gave me an opportunity to come out to his house. I treated Tim. Tim loved what I did for him. And he invited me out to, there's a yearly event called first of all, he kept saying, this is the guy I want you to meet. This is the guy I want you to meet. His name is Eric, man. He does a lot of stuff. I think you like what it does, man. All right. It's like, okay. All right. Whenever time comes, I'll meet this guy. Okay. I get it. So we went to, so a year later, there's an event that he usually puts on. He has a sports medicine team with all disciplines, acupuncturists, massage therapists, PTs, DOs, the whole nine. He has everybody in every discipline because they have that much respect for this guy and the things that he does and what he's done in the surfing world. So there was that competition, the U.S. Open surfing competition in Manhattan, California. So, and I remember our first meeting, Eric was there and all the other guys were around too. And Eric was explaining his work and showing some of the stuff that he was doing. And I was looking at this stuff like, what the hell is this, man? Is this yoga? What? I'm confused, right? But from a student, as a student, I know no better. I'm still learning. I'm still understanding. I'm still watching the people who have been doing this for quite some time and developing my own understanding as to what it is that I feel will be my own best interest in using moving forward. So I tapped, and Eric was, explaining to Dr. Mary Collins at the time, and then he was explaining to another guy. And then I tapped Eric. I was like, "Hey, can you show me some of this stuff?" And he was so busy, rampantly doing what he was doing. He was just like, "Hey, just sit down, just chime in and follow." I was like, "Okay, cool."
Shut up, kid. Take a seat. Questions at
the end. So at the time, I'm just a sponge. I want to soak it all in. I want to learn. I'm eager. I'm hungry, trying to figure it out. So I get on the ground and I start doing all the stuff he's doing, and it was really, it was different in the sense that you think it's yoga, but the amount of contractility and the amount of position that you have to put yourself in, when you can't do that as you, myself, and everyone in here as athletes, there's just like this competitive mental side of you. Like, are you kidding me? I can't put myself in that position. Oh, no. So it became an internal battle as to why can I not do that? Even knowing how much weight I've been able to lift, how many people I went across and when I played ball, and even in fights, you know what I'm saying? So it was just like, it was weird to me. I couldn't understand why I couldn't put my body in this contorted position and I'm only using my body. And it was just something that sparked me to just chase it and figure out exactly what it was. So fast forward on, I got Eric's contact and I was just on him, figuring out where he was at, where he was going to be next. Hey, I need to figure out. So Eric's was like, hey, you know what? Just come out for a weekend and do some instructor stuff. Just listen in and it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You'll learn it. You'll understand it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I drove out to Santa Barbara. I stayed out at one of my buddy's house for 4 days. And dude, it was a game changer for me. Like my first day of doing because in an instructor certification, you're there 4 days. So you're becoming an instructor. So you're getting put through the ringer. It's just like a workout. Right? Your body hasn't done these types of intricate movements with these intrinsic muscles. Your body hasn't learned how to breathe. Your body hasn't learned how to hold these positions while breathing, which is one of the things that we take for granted nowadays, right? No one knows how to really expand rib cages. No one knows how to really expand muscles in the back, even in the deep back. to allow that flaring to happen, a conscious breath, and when you're there, and as I'm taking it through the days, I'm feeling all kinds of kinks, and I go home that night, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going back tomorrow. Literally, I felt wide and big, but I also felt like any movement that I did, it was painful. I was like, oh, bending, breathing. Oh, what is this? It was different. Best way that I can put it. It was different, but it wasn't limiting. It was good different. And I knew that there was something in me that wanted more, but I didn't know why I wanted to go back, because it was hurting. But I went back the second day. The second day wasn't as detrimental as the first, obviously, but now I'm starting to get used to it. By the end of the fourth day, it became a lifestyle for me. Fast forward, my mother, who's had debilitating back pain, and the reason why it ties all in is because my white coat ceremony, she came out to see me, and I had already gone through the instructor course, and now I'm to the point where I'm getting into clinic, right? I'm starting to see patients now. I only have about a year and a half to graduate from chiropractic school. And my mother and I, she'd always carry these bags of medication since the days I can remember. And I'm talking prescriptions upon prescriptions. The doctors told her she had debilitating back pain, and something that she would have to deal with for the rest of her life. My mother, she's fit, and does, it does active. She's very active entrepreneur. The reason who really gives me all my inspiration. And to see the amount of medicine that she would walk around with, how it was just weird. I didn't understand it. So when she came to my white coat ceremony that day, I got a chance to do some stuff with her, just some soft tissue. Then I got her into some of the exercises, just the active holds, active positions. I taught her the founder. I taught her the standing knee compression. Then I taught her to stand a little bit and go into a deeper hinge to actually include her back. Just certain simple things that I knew I had already learned, right? Because now I'm at the point where my knowledge is a little bit more advanced in the musculoskeletal system. I understand the nervous system a lot more. I'm going to be seeing patients, so I better know this shit, So I got my mother to do these poses. She goes home. A week later, she calls me up and she says, I don't know if you have the magic hands from God, but the pain that I've been feeling for the last 10 years, I haven't felt it. And it's been a week. And that to me, like, tied all together. I said, okay, I'm in. And it's a profound story to me, and it's a powerful story to me, because I don't come from a family of medicine. I come from poverty. I don't come from educated, generation of understanding what medicine is, what to do, what to say no to, So to me, it was something that I knew, and I have a very big family. I mean, I have 63 first cousins, not he married that. No. My mother's side of the family, there's 13 of them. My dad's side of the family, 6 of them. Each couple didn't have any less than 6 kids.
Wow.
So I got family all over the place, So, but we, as vast, I would say the new millennials, we have a little bit more education in the things that we understand now. Nigeria is my background. I am from Nigeria. But in our generation, we have a little bit more education. We have a lot more health conscious individuals within our generation. But the one prior to us, that's not what they grew up on. And so for them, all they know is, okay, I'm going to the MD. Not to say anything about MD. I don't want to get into this bout of, you know what I mean? It turned into a battle, because we all know how that could go down. So going in that office, but not having the knowledge to ask questions as to what is this, why, where, who, what, how, to further understand for themselves as to how they can further and better their lives, because that's all they know. And so when you get into this idea, and it becomes a wheel that just keeps turning, what happens? It spins over to the next generation, so on and so forth. At a point in time, you have to cut it short and say,
yeah, really, I don't think, certainly I know the argument that you're trying to avoid, but anybody fucking looking from the outside in can say whatever model of health that we're running right now is not working. And it hasn't been working. It has not been working. Yeah. And it's not going to fix its fucking self with the current model. So we really do have to start looking at what is health, what does that mean to us, and empowering people, with practices like foundation training, with any practice that gets people moving in the right direction, feeling what it means to be human again, and not having to rely heavily on something that'll get you by but doesn't fix you
right
for the rest of your life.
Just go ahead. Just the from the transition of knowing what she took or what she gained from that, and how many years of things that she could have known. How much could I have saved her? Who's to say, But it's just now to say, okay, well, this might not be your answer, but this is a solution. Now we can actually move forward on, and maybe we don't have to go and dabble in, and she doesn't have to continue this regimen that she's already used to. And so I think that's what really changed. I haven't taken a medication since 2009 or 2008, actually. 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Not even an Advil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember getting off Advil. Not great stuff.
Every smart athlete has both gone through the time when they take a shitload of Advil, 800 milligrams a day minimum, up to 16, up to 2,400 milligrams a day, some people, crazy amounts. That's 16 pills, I think, or something like that. 12 pills. So you can't just rely, and this ain't just for pain. You can't rely on somebody else in life to make you feel good. And luckily, we kind of come with everything we need for the most part. I will accept that some people don't, and I wish they did, but most do. And if you just train the skill of being yourself consciously, meaning not like consciously, but like consciously, this is what I'm doing right now, this moment. Like, here's where I am in space. Here's where my feet are. Here's where my shoulders are. Here's where my head is. I'm not in my phone. I'm not thinking 10 years ahead or 10 years behind. I'm just here. There is a tremendous physicality to that I think a lot of people are lacking. And I think one of the biggest defining factors in our society's lack of health is not the school of thought it comes from. Who cares? Information's is widely available. You can go find it. It's the individual autonomy involved. I'm going to talk. So I have a couple brother-in-laws, but one of them is Ryan Forrest, my sister's husband. He's a really intelligent psychotherapist. And he gave me a really good understanding of something called locus of control, which redefined what I believe I do for a living in a way. Because what I used to think I did was I thought I got people out of pain, which is an extremely that's one of our problems with medicine, is we actually think we do something. We facilitate, we help, we remove impedance, things like that. But you teach a human body their capacity to heal one way or another, be it through chemistry or surgery or a simple lack of that human's body to heal, and they don't get better. But the practice of that is a shift in locus of control. The shift in, okay, I feel crappy. What am I going to do? What's that guy do? What's that guy do? He seems better. He's breathing pretty deep. That guy runs every morning. That guy takes ice baths. I can do that. You know what? I don't want to do it today. I'm going to do it today. That's a practice right there. When you do it, you shift your locus of control from external to internal, and you become autonomous for your health, at least 1 degree closer, Every time you don't make that decision, you're allowing your autonomy to be sort of removed. It's still an autonomous decision. Laziness or giving in or however you want to think of it, to just kind of that, as Rogan says, your inner bitch. That's true. We all have it in various forms. And each time you give in, you're feeding a system that doesn't support you. And each time you don't give in, you fight, whatever your fight is, and you get a little better, you make yourself feel a little better without chemistry, or at least without exogenous chemistry, outside the body stuff, you're literally developing the skill of autonomy, which is probably the most important human skill, is the ability to understand what's happening in your body just a little bit, to be sensitive to what's happening in your body just a little bit, and to take that translation and do something about it, or feed into it if it's the right thing. And sensitivity is at the heart and core of our dishealth as Westerners. And it's spreading around the world. It's not just us. It's not just anybody. It's human beings as a species are indulgent because of dopamine and other chemicals. And we're not bigger than that. We're silly. little monkeys.
We're bags
You know?
of fucking chemicals,
Right?
as McKenna's once said.
Well, we are, but they also tied into fungi, and they also tie into the incredible aqueous water-based environment that we somehow make solid and give personalities to and ambulate and move around. What the fuck is going on? I get why people believe in God, because there's just no explanation for why the human being exists as it does. But it does, and we do. And we have to start being a little bit better about how we use the gifts that we have, because they're gifts. In my more recent book, I kind of give a gentle, and I only give it gently because I don't understand it that well.
Give me a title.
True to form.
True to form.
Yeah, it's called True to Form. And if you want to understand my theory on respiration and posture and biomechanics, it's 95% of it. The other 5%, we got to meet in person, because there's a couple twists and turns that I just can't explain. And I'm not saying they're gonna be amazing. It's just it gives you that extra completion into understanding what foundation training is, which is a very interesting thing.
Great
to learn.
way to hook people in.
Yeah,
I got you for 95% of the give in my book, and then you got to come meet me for the other.
If you meet me in person, you're going to realize that 95% of it is pretty easy to learn. But the 5% that you can't learn can become deeply impactful in time, but you don't need it for the first several years. You guys can go learn from my books. I have free YouTube videos. How cool is that, just outside running into Lance?
Yeah, man. We were sitting out there with Lance Armstrong and Harpreet from Aura Ring, which makes the best fucking sleep tracker, activity tracker on the planet. No affiliation. They're not a sponsor. So lay off. But yeah, Lance is using their product. Aubrey and I have been using it for a long time. Greenfield got us set up with those guys. But yeah, before you guys showed up for the podcast, Lance was like, he was asking me how much time I had. And I was like, well, I got a podcast with Doc Goodman and a couple of his buddies. And he was like, dude, he sent me a 10-minute video a long time ago and I still use it. And I was like, no shit. He's like, yeah, I love it. And I was like, man, that's crazy. But I had first seen you with the video you did with Dr. Joe Mercola, who I'm a big fan of. And it was old school. I mean, he busted out a chair and all sorts of shit. And Mercola was just himself, I think, getting back into training, starting to figure out low-carb diets, and the Sprint 8 protocol, which I still use. I actually did a life hack of the week on it. It's a badass, just a 30 seconds all out, 90 seconds active recovery for 8 rounds. It's a 22-minute workout, but bang for your buck, right? And there's a ton of science that shows how that affects telomere length for longevity, human growth hormone secretion, deep sleep, the whole nine. But I've been a fan of Mercola's for a long time, and he was blown away by your work. So you've been on my radar for a while. Cool. It is a treat having you guys out here.
Thank you.
It really is.
That video that I did for Lance, as I just shared with him, I haven't seen Lance in several years. Won't go there. But seeing him.
You guys have a falling out?
No, not at all.
Give me the details.
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what.
Won't go there.
You know what?
What does that mean?
I'm going to give you the details, because they're not bad details at all. The only person it would reflect poorly on is me, and I'm fine. Nothing reflects poorly on me anymore. I feel like I've done a good job with what I had and continue to.
I'll be the judge of that.
That's fine. But with Lance, I always felt that I didn't know him well enough for him to write the foreword to my book. And he wrote that because my partner at the time, Peter Park, who's still a very dear friend of mine, was training Lance for a long time. My role was to give him a really simple, hey, dude, your back hurts when you ride your bike and you're trying to go to the Tour de France, that's going to be a problem. So here's a video that's about 10 minutes long, 11 minutes long, that you can follow. And that video is on YouTube, and it has been on YouTube for about 5 years or so, 6 years, and it has like almost 3 million views now. And
Still making money from the YouTube
No,
video.
I don't make money from YouTube. I never did that.
Really?
No, I don't want you watching.
What do you get, like 10 cents a view or
and
some
if
shit?
and just so you guys
There's nothing
know,
wrong with collecting a paycheck from YouTube? Come on,
if
no?
somebody put
Kids
that-
have dreams. Omeka's got people the same age that have fucking dreams of being the next YouTube sensation.
Seriously, man. YouTube is where it's at now.
No, I get it. It made a career for me, if I'm honest. Like, I'd say that my first book came out thanks to Lance's endorsement and maybe a couple other people. Casey Wasserman was a big helpful guy in that. These were guys that were not my network. But I had this gentleman, Peter Park, who's one of the best trainers on the planet. I call him the best trainer on the planet, but I haven't seen the whole planet. But in my opinion, he's the best trainer on the planet. He is. And his capacity to see something from his lens that was so full, he saw something in foundation training before anybody did. Anybody. And I introduced it to a lot of people when I was in my late 20s. And he was the first that really let me show him what it was and didn't have an ego about it, even though he was the only one that probably should have had an ego about it. So Lance came through Peter, wrote me an amazing foreword to my first book that became a pretty solid book. It's called Foundation, and it did really well. And it gave me a career, and it helped people that otherwise never would have found my work find it. And that platform started because of that silly video I made for Lance. And that moment out there was very validating, because I thought he didn't give a shit. You know, I thought he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to just write this forward. I don't care. Who are you? Whatever. I didn't know him well enough. I had only met with him a couple times. I did a few workouts with him. I taught him some stuff and he seemed to really like it. So that was very validating out there. That was just a cool random circumstance. I didn't know he'd be here or anything like that. Honestly, I can't even realize I'm surprised he recognized me. You know, that was kind of cool. But that's the thing. This work I didn't develop this work because I thought it would help people. I was forced into this against my will by my spine. And I've been restructuring my spine for many, many years, 10 years now. And it's starting to feel better and better. I can't believe what I'm doing. I can't believe that I'm able to surf the way I'm able to surf and play the way I'm able to play and do whatever weightlifting I really want to do and keep up with whoever I want to keep up with to a degree. You know, I'm not trying to be a superhero, and I'm not an amazing athlete. I'm a decent athlete, and I like being that. It's perfectly fine for me. I want to be a decent athlete and a hell of a doctor. That's my goal. So this stuff comes from a place of a lot of like, I don't want to say insecurity. We were talking about this stuff yesterday a little bit, and I don't want to give you the wrong impression that I'm an insecure man, because I'm really not. But I'm also not an overly secure man. I'm also not an overly confident, you need to try this, it's going to change your life forever. And things like that. Seeing like along the way for years, I've been getting these confidence boosts, first from my own body, and then from the people that started to enter the periphery that had athletic capacities that exceeded mine tremendously. And the work was working for them. Oh, that's kind of cool. Then I put a video out on YouTube, and it'll say like first week, 1,000 people saw it, then 5,000, 20, 50,000, 100,000, 200, a million. Oh, what the? People want to get better. And I'm going to segue a little bit, if you don't mind.
Segue.
Yeah.
Segue away.
Sorry, man. I'm used to talk. I usually, when I do podcasts and stuff, I'm talking to like, I mean, I've done a lot of cool ones with like some really cool guys, but like this is a different platform that actually allows me to be much more myself. This is the environment I grew up in and have played in my whole life. My friends have always been firefighters and athletes. And I happened to have become a doctor because I was broken and I needed to learn how to fix myself. So all of this kind of segues into this idea that right now, the biggest issue that the entire world is contending with, other than those contending with famine and starvation, maybe, is we're dying as we look for relief for chronic pains and basic chronic symptoms like anxieties and depressions that can feel heavy. I have felt my back make me think that I am going to die. I can't move. And I've been in that position for weeks. I've been on the floor where somebody had to help me up for weeks. Not anymore. That was back in my 20s. In my 30s, I've never had that happen. My back went out once about a year ago, almost a year ago. And it took me 24 hours to get it back on track. And it was bad. But it took me 24 hours to get it solid back on track, because now I know how to do it. As the world looks for relief, if you have any option that people can try, you have to teach them the option. You have to. Because right now their options are chemicals. And for some people, that's the right option. But it's passive, and it shifts your locus of control from inside of you to outside of you. And you then have a major vulnerability to become the victim of addiction, because your locus of control is no longer inside of you. You're not making autonomous decisions anymore. Your brain is acting on impulse instead of integrity. And our culture has become based upon impulse, because our dopamine stimulation, our reward center, goes unchallenged and unchecked. And the segue is what I know you want to talk about. There's a system within our bodies, because we're mammals, not because of any other reason. And this system has existed for significantly longer than we have as human beings. It's called the mammalian endogenous cannabinoid system. There's a plant named after it, or it's named after a plant. The plant has probably been around longer, but we just found out that cannabis has all these amazing effects on the body. And great, you can smoke this thing and you can eat this thing and you can take this tincture and there's these effects, but that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that this strange substance grows, and then it has identical receptors spread through 2 major regions of the human body. And the only interesting thing about cannabis is that it can stimulate this system. Now, it comes from a hemp plant, which is incredibly interesting and can sustain life for a lot of cultures. But the truly interesting medicinal part of cannabis comes in that it stimulates our endogenous cannabinoid system, which has the capacity to mediate our immune system, our hormonal system, the endocrine system. It has the capacity to regulate so many things, including a biggie is a biggie. It competes with dopamine. When your body says, I love this, it feels good, it goes dopamine squirt. Some scientists can explain that better, but it's accurate.
I like dopamine squirt. Dopamine skeet.
You get a dopamine
Thanks for talking
ski.
our language.
You get a dopamine ski when pleasure comes from an outside source or an inside source. And that needs to be competed with if you're trying to break addiction. If you're trying to break a pattern, you need dopamine to stop responding to the pattern you're trying to break. Endogenous cannabinoids that can be fed through things like omega-6 fatty acids, particularly arachidonic acid, which is found in avocados, pumpkin seeds, really well-fed meats. It's not about just arachidonic acid. It's the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 to omega-9 fatty acids, and there's so many other components to that are just as important. But what's important is that you're taking in enough of the healthy fats to feed that system so that when you're trying to get better, the system that gets you better has fuel to be stimulated without outside sources. And this is a little bit of a confusing topic, and I understand that. But the takeaway is really simple. The takeaway is that right now, if you go and Google and search things like Project CBD, Normal, and understand, Normal is spelled NORML.
And Project CBD is .org, not .com.
Thank you. If you look at these things, you have the capacity to shift your locus of control internally when it comes to the debate about marijuana. I don't want to tell you what's right or wrong. That's not for me to do. I've done my research proudly, and I stand firmly in the way of anybody telling me that it's bad for me or bad for them, unless their lifestyle is bad for them. If your lifestyle is bad for you, that's a pattern of addiction too. You got to break out of that. Oddly enough,
there's no supplement that fixes a shitty diet.
No,
There's no nootropic or amount of caffeine that counters not sleeping enough. You know, consistently and chronically, right? There's one bad night of sleep is not going to fuck you for the week, but at the same time, if anything that's chronic, you know, one cheat meal turns into twice a week, turns into 3 days a week, you got an issue, right?
Yeah.
And certainly when we talk about the cannabinoid system endogenously produced through eating avocados and good stuff, and running and doing different things.
Well, that's the next thing,
yeah. Or exogenously taking it in from a plant. That's still not going to fix constantly putting your digestive system under stress from eating the problematic food that you don't tolerate well, or just eating too much of a good thing.
Well, let's get into that a little bit, because what you're saying is 100% right, eh? And for people to understand that, the ecosystem within your gut dictates the degree to which your body is going to produce dopamine and serotonin in the gut, which is the place where most of both of those neurotransmitters are produced. So A, eat well, digest well. My dad says it really well, and I think it's a famous quote. It might not be, but he told it to me the other day. Keep your mind open and your guts clean, or something like that. You do those two things. Yeah, that's what it is. Keep your mind full and your guts clean. Yeah, and your gut's empty, something. But what it does is it creates an ecosystem that allows probiotics to healthfully expand, helpfully digest food. The gut is a big mediator through the vagus nerve into the brain of our sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system. The more often that sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, the more we're going to need to calm down. The more we need to calm down and don't calm down, the more we're going to need exogenous sources to calm us down. The things like ice baths in particular. I love cryogenic stuff, man. I love it. It works incredibly well. If you're in a bad mood or if you're feeling crummy, spend 5 minutes submerged up to the shoulders, just like, and it's not my advice. And it's not Wim Hof's advice. This is human. This is a system that responds to cold. And the process of responding to cold is an adaptation, an acute adaptation. And as that adaptation occurs, the hormones of adaptation are secreted to make your body better at handling cold in that moment. And those hormones require support. And that support comes from all these sources, that are mediated through the endogenous cannabinoid system. Cryogenics stimulates the use of the endogenous cannabinoid system. Exercise stimulates the use of the endogenous cannabinoid system. What you got to know about this system is that it's not just some euphoria center. Euphoria is a piece of it, luckily. Euphoria comes so that our body tries to use it more. It's like a built-in reward system that you have to find your way to. Some of the best waves I've ever surfed in my life require like a mile hike because nobody's out there. And you want to know why it's so fun? Because I hiked a mile out there, even if the waves are mediocre. Your body is designed to respond to stress, not to avoid it, physical and mental. If you get into the habit of not responding to stress, you're basically doing the same thing to your body as if you're eating poorly and sitting on the couch all day, or looking at your phone all day, or just resting all day. You're doing something that is unnatural to you, and it doesn't stress the systems that need to be stressed, so your body doesn't know how to handle stress. And the system that handles stress is the endogenous cannabinoid system. It also mediates neuroplasticity. It also mediates homeostasis. It's the most widely dispersed system in the entire body. CB1 receptors, the first type, are on the entire central nervous system, most of the brain.
That's THC for all you potheads.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Not CBD?
Nope.
Not CB1
Nope.
rather?
This has nothing to do with THC.
Where does THC fit in?
THC has the capacity to stimulate these receptor sites.
Gotcha. They don't lock in
No.
like key and...
It is lock and key, absolutely. Okay. But without THC there, the receptor site still is available to be stimulated by endogenous sources.
Correct.
Like
I'm talking about
Yeah.
exogenously.
Yeah.
THC would be the one that fits into CB1.
Yeah, I believe so, because it stimulates the brain. I didn't hear you right. Sorry about that. So CB1 is stimulated by THC, among other things. But what you got to know about CB1 is that it's central nervous system mostly. This is the interesting part of this system. And if you're just going to go play, I want you to understand why you're playing a little bit, because it's really good for you if you do it right. It can change your world. That CB1 receptor system along the center communication system of the body, the central nervous system, is branched out to the peripheral nervous system where all the CB2 receptors are, and mostly in immune system cells and sites and tissue. Those immune system sites communicate steadily with the central nervous system, and it governs your homeostasis. Not just immune homeostasis, but your immune system is a big tell-all of what your body is doing and how hard it's fighting or not fighting. From that immune system and peripheral nervous system, you also have some of this stuff in digestive tissue. You have it where all neurotransmitters tend to go. And it kind of reverse engineers. This endogenous cannabinoid system acts to see what just happened based on the most recent serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine secretions. And it looks at it and it's like, okay, so that happened, that happened, that happened. How do we respond to that next time better? Who do I need to pull in to have more support the next time that happens? And it starts pulling it in. And that's the euphoria. That's the change in our physiology. That's going from stress to mitigation of stress. And you know what that feels like? Job well done. Your body's stoked. Your body feels well because it literally it looked at the challenge and it fought it and it won. And that's it, man. We're desensitized and we're just being bitches about things. And we're letting chemistry dictate our personalities and our lives and our values. You know what chemistry is? It's chemistry. Somebody made it in a lab and decided it was okay for you. Humans are very fallible. Be careful. I'm not saying I'm anti-drug. I'm not saying I'm anti any pharmaceuticals. I'm not anti-surgery. I'm not anti-procedure. I think they're wonderful, but you got to do your due diligence first. If you have a heart attack, I'm not talking to you. If you have a stroke, probably not talking to you either. I'm not talking about major medical issues. I'm talking about the people that are dying because they're trying to prevent the pain they feel, or the depression they feel, or the anxiety they feel. And they're not dying because they're killing themselves, although some do. They're dying because the chemistry that they're using is immiscible in the human body. It doesn't mix well. It creates too much toxic environment when it gets in, and very small doses can kill us. It's a terrible situation. I want it to get better.
Hell yeah, brother. So have you guys done much experimentation with exogenous cannabinoids?
I'll take this one.
I got a year and a half to still go back to being a fireman. I can't answer that
Yeah, you had
yet.
to test clean for a while, right?
I am happily not drug tested. Now, if I was drug tested, the only thing they would ever find in my system is THC. They would never find alcohol. They would never find anything else. They would never find anything else because the only thing in the world that I trust is cannabis, because I understand how good of a plant that is and I have legitimate experience with it over a 10-year period. I started a little bit when I was around 26, 27, and the habit slowly developed. And it's a habit. I don't kid anybody. There's habitual formation in the body, but the beautiful thing about cannabis is you can step away from it with pretty much no withdrawal of any kind, because it's something that the body accepts willingly and doesn't have to change all that much to accept. You know what happens when you drink alcohol? Your body produces all this alcohol dehydrogenase, and holy crap, it's a slaughter of alcohol molecules. It's aggressive. That's why there's issues after. It's toxic to the body. The body doesn't want it. It fights it. When cannabis comes in, the body receives it, accepts it. It hits stimulation points that are there to be stimulated. And when they're stimulated, really good things in the body can happen if you allow them to happen. If you smoke a little pot and you eat potato chips and you sit on a couch, you're going to be a lazy piece of crap that day because it's going to keep you in that pattern. You have to be smart, and you have to be moderate, and you have to pay attention. And if it slows you down, you got to notice it's slowing you down. You have to see that. It comes down to awareness. But I used to be so nervous about my credibility if somebody found out that I smoke pot sometimes. And over years, I developed a confidence in my own brain and my own knowledge that I started trusting myself and my opinion of it more than those I was hearing from, because those whose opinions I trusted, most of them used it too. And they were healthy and they were older. Some of them 30, 40, 50 years older than me, into their 70s and 80s, and they were healthy. They did not drink. That was the big common theme. They occasionally smoked pot. And they ran and they exercised, and a lot of them surf, and a lot of them swim, and a lot of them play music, which is a biggie. Each of these is a neuroplastic potentiator, something that you have to continue learning a pattern in and improving yourself from. They all play within the same system, and our bodies develop and adapt in these microcosmic moments due to this incredible system within us. And our shortcut, and not all shortcuts are good, but our shortcut.
I'll add a little bit to that. I think I started learning about the real healing effects of cannabis. I think this was in 2010. And 2010. That year, 2010 going on 2011, that was the date, that was the year I finished playing ball. I played at Washington, and I declared pro early, and I wanted to get out and go, try to make it to the NFL. It's this lifelong dream of mine, and things that I wanted to amount and accomplish all just literally rode and died on me going to the NFL. I didn't want to be a doctor. I'll tell you right now, that wasn't my goal. So anyways, when that whole thing happened, that year, my pops passed away early on, and I blew my Achilles. I was on Denver Broncos radar. I get a call from Ronnie Miles. He was the DB coach at the time. Called me a week out. He hadn't known that I tore my Achilles at the time. He calls me up. Hey, Mecca, you ready? I got a flight out for you the following Saturday for a workout. Oh, man, Ronnie, there's no way I can do this, man. I just blew my Achilles. And from that onwards, man, it was almost like my world came crashing down. Cause it's like, what the fuck did you do now? All you ever known was just playing ball. Now, I wasn't one of those guys that just like gave it all to football and gave nothing to my education. I had it between the years, you know what I mean? But I was still one of those guys that if I did something, I'm going to go 150%, at it, no matter what, until the wheels fall off. And literally, it didn't fall off, but it got cut short. And so from then onwards, I went into a really dark, deep place in that year. And I went in, and obviously I was already suffering just some subconscious, demons that I hadn't even addressed. And then I go to the doctor. Of course, I get done with my surgery. Post-surgery, now I'm in a boot, and the pain is excruciating. And I mean, I was on Valium. I was on Oxy. I was on naproxen. I was on morphine. I was on Vicodin. I was on ibuprofen, 800 milligrams, like 7 or 8 different medications that I could remember. Now this doesn't now. This is the year of all the stuff that I had gone through. Now, mind you, who knows how many other issue I might have suffered in terms of, like, playing football, and if I had any concussions, I can only probably remember one. But leading up to that, I was given all this. These medications here. Okay, here's what you need to do in order for you to get free of pain. And so I'm taking these medications. I feel great. I pop a Valium. I feel great. So on, it became habitual. And I found myself losing my personality, who I was. My roommates, my teammates come over. They see me coming slumped out on the couch. Didn't want to communicate, talk to anybody. Didn't want to do anything. I was just in a world that I didn't know what the hell where I was. And there was one thing a girl I was dating at the time. We started having some issues, and I recognized I would just have no patience. Like, I would just snap without equipment. And I have 4 sisters, so it's just like I'm the only boy. So I was raised by women. And you raise your voice to a woman, that's not something that's gonna fly in this house. If one jumps, they all jump. And so I started noticing it with my ex at the time. And I think that was a time when she's like, you need to go see a specialist, you need to go see someone. I went to the school counselor, didn't help. And I finally went up to my doctor and the MD there at the time. I went up to him with the bag of medication that I had, and I said, look, man, take this shit. I don't know what's going on. I can't do it anymore. It's just to the point where I'm losing who I am. And I don't know if it's this or if it's this, but there is something off. And so at that moment, he gave me a prescription. He said, okay, go see this lady. And it was a naturopath in Seattle, Washington at the time. And I went to go see the naturopath. And the way that she orchestrated these strands that she gave me was beyond amazing. It blew my mind, because at the time I didn't smoke at all because I was an athlete, but I didn't know that you had so many options.
The game has changed.
Yeah.
You had so many options, but within that moment, it wasn't just like these options. It was just, okay, this is going to help you relax your muscles. This is going to help you sleep. This is going to help calm some of those thoughts that you have in. This is going to help you get some activity if you want to move around the house. Okay. So from then on, I took it and I started to medicate. And it took me away from the moment that I was highly medicating under these heavy drugs, that I was having borderline suicidal thoughts, to, even though I was in a 9 out of 10 pain, all right, we got to go. Let's go hit it. Let's go to the pool. Let's go figure it out. You're no longer on insurance. You're not on insurance, so this is you and yourself only. So you got to go figure it out. Go do it. Research. I would get a strand, and I would be on the computer researching Achilles. I would do the next day. I would wake up happy. Even though the pain was there was a purpose that was almost like instilled in me that I had no clue where it came from. Now, could it be the herb? Maybe. Could it be the fact that they removed the drugs? Maybe. But who's to say, if those drugs were there, would I be in the same mindset, or would I even been able to get out of that mindset? And I think what it provided for me was, it did help with a lot of the pain that I was having. It subsided it. Didn't take it away, but I could know in my mind, very similar to the endogenous effect that we're talking about. I knew that I could actually know how to mitigate this feeling, versus, well, I'm just going to replace it and call it good. And so for me, that was the gateway to understanding a little bit more. And obviously, I started to dive in and do my own research. And in school, we had a dissertation that we had to give, kind of like a presentation. And I had four of my other colleagues. And one of the things that we included in there was the cannabinoids, and the endogenous cannabinoid, and how it's helping a lot of these epileptic patients, and how it's been helping with Parkinson's. And you've seen all our students and some of the other doctors, some were putting their nose up and some were actually shaking their head and actually knew that this actually is supported, that there's research out there. People are doing remarkable research and treating people and showing people that you have control within yourself. You don't necessarily have to stop that pattern of happening. And I just want to touch on what he talked about in pain and how we always, when we experience pain, we want to move away from pain and stop pain. To a certain extent, it makes sense, but the body loves movement. In a chiropractic world, when we adjust, there's a restriction to a certain direction that this bone does not want to go. Well, what do? We move it in that direction that it does not want to go. For some reason, the body wants to stay away from that movement. So what is different in that pain, rather in that point where a chiropractor touches your neck and he says, is that tender? Yeah, okay. This is the direction that it doesn't want to go. Versus this person saying, okay, does that movement hurt? Yeah, okay. Well, let's move it. Let's move it in that direction. Let's get things open. Let's get things really moving. Because only then can you empower them. Only then can they actually know that I don't have to fear that movement again, because now I'm empowered to understand how my body really needs to, what my body really needs to do and what my body really needs to know. I think that's just like the big meat of it and what we're actually missing in this realm, man.
People got to know themselves, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people go through their whole lives wearing shoes all day, every day, wear socks when they get home, take their shoes off in the shower, put their socks back on, or put their socks, they don't let their feet touch the earth. They don't explore outside in nature very often. And I'm not saying everybody's got to go be a hippie. You don't. But you got to get outside, because even the mean aggressive types that aren't hippies, and I'm not saying all hippies aren't mean and aggressive either, but even like the conservative types need nature. Even the liberal types need nature. Even the tall people need nature. Even the short people need nature. The fat ones and skinny ones too. The boys, the girls, the ones with one arm, the ones with two arms. I don't care what you are. If you got a brain and a system, you need nature as often as you can be outside. And that means breathing fresh air when you can, looking at trees and hearing birds every now and then if you can. Those things lend themselves to exactly what Emeka's talking about and what I'm talking about, which is sensitivity. An animal that is in a cage becomes desensitized to everything that it was otherwise built to do. And we are all experiencing that because we're big, intelligent, but intuitive animals. We have the capacity to grow our intelligence, which is really cool, but some people tend to do that at the compensation of their intuition. And I don't think that has to happen. I think there can be a really nice balance where you can become a very intelligent person and you can play with plant medicines intelligently with the idea that you're going to actively adapt into the person you want to become. And you're using this stimulant that feels relaxing because it's relaxing the right tissues and stimulating the right tissues, has the capacity to help those to almost not help, that's the wrong term, to facilitate those microadaptations to occur. And what I say is feed the system as well as you can. Even if you're going to smoke pot, whatever, feed the system with arachidonic acid to a degree. You don't need a ton, you just need a little bit. But you need to make sure you're not just having omega-3 fats. You need to make sure you're having complete spectrum of fatty acids in your body. You got to eat things like pumpkin seeds. Like if you're not eating pumpkin seeds, go get raw pumpkin seeds. Just eat them. They're good for you. They have lots of fiber, they got lots of fat, they got a little bit of protein, but their microchemistry is unreal. And there's a lot of things like that. And I want people to really explore why avocados are good for them, why pumpkin seeds are good. I don't want to just tell you. I want you to explore. Go on Google and shift your locus of control from my mouth to your hands. Go figure out some shit because you have a brain too. And my job is maybe to guide a little bit. Same Emeka, same Jesse. Emeka does it in sports medicine beautifully. Emeka's a team doctor for the Nigerian Olympic team, something he won't tell you, but I will. Jesse's a hell of a firefighter. He wasn't just an ordinary guy.
We got to be clear about that.
Was. For sure.
I don't carry it anymore. I don't learn it. So
yeah, I hear you, and I appreciate that. And Jesse felt that he could help the community that he fell in love with by being a firefighter, by teaching them something to help themselves, because a big problem in first responder communities is the same problem in the larger human community, which is some people get it and take care of themselves, but the vast majority do not. And instead of looking at those that are feeling better and healthier and saying, what do? They say what you're doing is wrong because their cognitive dissonance is shameful and upset with how they're living their life, and they feel that their pattern is too difficult to break. And so instead they fall into judgment and assumption. And It's a pattern all of us get into in different places of our lives, but the more you take care of yourself, the less that happens. I find that the more somebody is actively taking care of themselves, the less they really care about what's going on around them other than their immediate, like family and friends. It really focuses in a healthy perspective to take care of yourself. But it starts with sensitivity, man. Get off your desk, get off your computer for a little while, get off your phone for a little while, even if it's just 20 minutes. Just throw it away from you and go put your feet in the grass, take a few big deep breaths through your nose. I hear that's better. And just enjoy the ridiculous amount of physiological processes having to go on at one time for your ridiculous self to exist at that moment. It's celestial, universal, crazy stuff going on. And we get to be probably the most interesting beneficiaries of genetics and whatever other biological processes lead to us being human, and that being a squirrel, and that being a donkey, and that being a bird, and that being a slug. We scored. You know, part of that is the capacity to feel a lot. And I offer people the challenge of feeling what you feel and getting through it. And if you find yourself drinking a ton or medicating a ton, where it's a part of a pattern, I really suggest that you just research the realities of the endogenous cannabinoid system's capacity to break major patterns. But more important than that, I recommend that you look into the history of opioid chemistry, and that opium came from a plant too, and that they manipulated that plant so severely that the chemistry now kills people. It's so strong, it's so concentrated, but that's been an endeavor for hundreds of years. Bayer Medicine came out with, I posted this just the other night, just because I grabbed this a while ago, but it just rang true. A friend of mine had recently passed away from opiate overdose. A lot of people take heroin. But heroin was actually originally brought in by Bayer because so many people were addicted to morphine. And heroin was the safe alternative. It was an addiction breaker. Obviously, that didn't work very well. And the chemistry has only gotten stronger. There's things out there that are 50 to 100 times stronger and more concentrated than heroin that are literally prescribed, I don't want to overestimate, at least tens of thousands of times a day, but probably 50 to 100,000 times a day in America. Somebody's getting opiate chemistry that is stronger than the human body desires or needs, other than in labor or in major acute accidents. They're getting that shit for their ankle sprain, or they broke their ankle, or they broke their wrist. You know, they're getting Cymbalta, they're getting all these different strong selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRI drugs. And their brain cannot contend with the chemistry in a normal way. It's an influx of weird shit happening to a brain that needs nature. Some people need it. I get that. But they're extreme cases. They're really extreme cases. They are not kids with ADD. They are not kids with depression. They are not kids with manic depression or bipolar disorder. They are not kids that can't fucking stay still. They're kids. It's adults making a shitty decision for another person by putting them on chemistry that our brains cannot contend with the addictive patterns of. And that's why we're seeing housewives and healthy people dying at a rate that what is typically seen in like homeless populations and populations that have legitimate mental disorders, unfortunately. But we're seeing those rates, you're seeing an acceleration that is starting to lap the communities we would expect to be dying and harming themselves from these drugs. They just got lapped by the other community that we thought was intelligent and we thought had their shit together and was societal norm as they went about their lives, but they got addicted to the heaviest chemistry out there right now. And they couldn't help themselves. And those people need to understand the endogenous cannabinoid system. They need to understand locus of control, and they need to understand foundation training. And I say that.
Fuck yeah, brother. we went a little bit over, but fucking no sense in cutting it short, man. That was excellent. I'm really happy we got to take a deep dive into that. Find you guys online.
Just check out foundationtraining.com. Check out these guys. Well, Jesse travels with me very steadily. He's pretty much teaches more foundation training than just about anybody these days. He's out there. We're
good excuse to inspire and share. Like that's been the joy of it is.
I think every one of us is really surprised at what we're doing right now. Not just that we're talking about something that means a lot to us, but that we're at a place in life. I'm 37. What are you guys, 35 and 32? I'm 32. Yeah. We're kids still. I believe that. And we get to do something, I think, big. I think we're going to do something big. I think we've already started. I think I started the program with foundation training, and it took hold in some people's lives. But nobody knows what we're doing now. And what we're doing now is tremendous in comparison to what we did 5 years ago. And it's about to come out. And as I told you, I just took full ownership of my business for the first time of my life. And I am changing the accessibility of our work to be just significantly more accessible to people. If we're going to become very successful, it's going to be because hundreds of thousands of people use this work, not because 5 or 10,000 do. Like that's not going to cut it anymore. I know that a lot of people know about foundation training, but what they know is so simplified. I want them to understand how much more there is, and that this is a course of study for the human body. And it's not the only one. But if you take this one, every other one you take is going to be a lot easier to understand and get through. You got to have that basic weight distribution and space around the nervous system and space around the muscles in order for the body to operate as efficiently as it can. And the most interesting thing, the correlation between the systems that I've talked about today, biomechanics and biochemistry, is that the places where we need to make the most space for nerves that exit the central nervous system, places we need to make the most space for the torso and the visceral tissue, where the spleen is in particular, where the liver is in particular, where the guts are in particular, the pancreas, the prostate for men, the ovaries for women, where those places are, correlate definitively to the ability to hip hinge well, the space to hinge your hips well. That spine, there's a spinal length at the low spine needed in order to do that correctly. Huge amount of CB1 receptors along that central nervous area. Where you have to make the most space, you have the most CB1 receptors. The more space you make through biomechanics and exercise, the easier they're stimulated. The more space, the more stimulation comes in exogenously or endogenously. We have a system we can play with. Just learn it, get it. But if you want to find us, come to a certification at Foundation Training, come to a workshop. Jesse's going to be with Jesse at foundationtraining.com. I'm just going to give him your email.
Yeah, Instagram's the
email Jesse.
I'm getting a lot of Instagram.
What are you guys on social media?
My tag is sports.dr.mek. And you'll see me on there on my Instagram. I'm located out in Dallas. That's where my office is, and I practice there. And you can check my website out. I have a IV bar, which I do customization IVs for a lot of systemic ailments. We talk about blood work. We talk about a lot of the DNA factors and things of that nature. And so we run tests, and we try and figure out exactly food sensitivities. All right, what the fuck does the ecosystem look like? What does your ecosystem look like? All the stuff that you've been told, oh, eat this, eat that. Is it really good for you? Are you really absorbing it? And so we do an extensive panel tests to check out what that person actually needs, and then tailor it to if it's supplements. Obviously, we know that is an absorption issue. If you have things that are coming back red, yellow, and then we take away those food sensitivities, and or rather inform you about those food sensitivities, and then what vitamins that you can take to kind of help supplement some of those pathways that have become wonky because of this, ongoing months and years of eating like shit. And if we decide to go in an IV route, we also have that option as well too. And then I do a lot of my sports medicine fascia work there. But yeah, there's a combination of things in my clinic, man. So you'll find it really interesting.
That's awesome. Hopefully we get some people.
Jesse, spelled like a lady with an IE, _ the nomad. I don't know why my mom and dad gave it with an IE, and everyone's like, oh, like a chick. But I always tell people, reach out when I travel a lot, and when I'm going to Costa Rica, now I'm doing a workshop down there because connected with another instructor. So if you're wanting to learn, you see him in the area. Like I love coaching. I charge, but I try to be realistic with the region. And if I'm just talking shop with you, it's like whatever. It's fun. Get to help others, firefighters, however.
Oh yeah. Where are you at on YouTube and social
Just
media?
Foundation Training. Actually, I think our YouTube page is called Free Foundation Training.
Okay.
and because it's free. The other stuff's on our website, foundationtraining.com. I currently am in Oahu. My wife and baby and I just moved out to Oahu, and I'm teaching classes out there. I travel a bit, but I'll be honest, if you're willing to come to Oahu, I'm going to charge you a hell of a lot less because I don't want to travel as much. I got a little girl at home now. I really want to be there, at least for a good long while. And if you go on my website, you're going to learn just about as much as I'm going to teach you about foundation training. If you really pay attention, if you buy our Core Elements program, we got a streaming website that's going to be membership based coming very soon. Just if you buy our programs now, which stoked if you do, I appreciate it. Just know that once we go streaming, you will be grandfathered in to a very low cost rate, and you will get the same amount of money that you spent on Core Elements in the new style. You won't lose any money of any kind, and you'll actually get about 10 times the amount of information. Core Elements is a 6-hour program. It's long. It takes you through several months to learn it properly. If you learn it, you know a lot about foundation training. You know, it's thorough. I hope people buy it, but I understand also if you wait a couple weeks and you see our subscription website come out, but that's going to be growing for another month. Like the really solid version of
the issues with the app, we're all good. Well, it's been excellent having you guys on. A real treat.
Thanks,
to have you back in town.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for the hospitality.
That was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.